Okay, guys, this is Matt and Mags here, as always, with a volley every Monday after weekend football's finished. How we get into it, Mags?
Let's do this.
I love that music; it's brilliant. Thank you, Benny, for that again. Benny, who does such great work behind the scenes at Radio Tekkers.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So, Mags, before a great show on transmission just a few minutes ago. Fantastic as always. I see you've dressed down for this one, however.
I was tempted to leave the, as you said, penguin drinking a cup of tea mask on, but who knew that plague masks were made of rubber and they stifled you breathing? No, who would have known?
The chat is already causing trouble, man. We've been on the air 30 seconds, and
I mean, 50% of that is true.
And no offense, Graham, but I'm a queen, not a king. Right, honey?
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And we love it. We love you all who get involved in the chat below. We love you getting involved straight away. But of course, technically, we're going to start with the elephant in the room, shall we? Or shall we say the unemployment line, Mags? Which is the turnaround which has gone. Obviously, Steve Bruce got the sack a couple of weeks ago with his £8 million payoff. I don't think that the manager who got the sack this morning had quite the same payoff.
No, and it's interesting that he was never the first choice for that job in the first place.
Obviously, choice, wasn't he?
We're talking about Nuno at Tottenham. Yeah, he was eighth choice, and ironically, the person who's been linked with the job, and I think he's confirmed that he's taken the job on a short-term deal. Antonio Conte, he was one of the first people to turn down the job when it came up after Mourinho, and then obviously Ryan Mason had that stint as caretaker manager. He was one of the first people to be linked and turn down the role at Tottenham. So it's interesting that he's took the short-term deal, especially knowing that the Newcastle job is there and he would have the funds to essentially build his own project. I'm surprised he went with the Tottenham decision.
Indeed. Graham from Go Back Up in the chat is already saying the mad month for August and sat by November the 1st. That's bizarre. Apparently, Conte is getting 100 million to spend in January.
Well,
according to one link.
Is that 100 million coming from the sale of Kane in January?
Good question. Good question. That. And Graham, I wasn't offended. Of course, I wouldn't be offended about that. If you can't with your mates, then you get blocked. It's fine. Right. Anyway. Right. So Conte coming in. Obviously, I think he'll steady the ship. But from what I can tell, Nuno was sacked for playing Nuno football.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of him being brought in was the way he played at Wolves, which I think was very one-dimensional in the first place. He didn't always have a plan B, and he got found out pretty quickly at Wolves. So for Daniel Levy to then give him the job at Tottenham, it kind of showed that everybody else had turned down that job. So it's interesting. True. You only give him 4 months before you're sacking him. They're getting very much like Watford in terms of how they're getting the managers through the door.
This is true. Talking about a previous manager, of course, obviously people have been comparing Nuno to Pochettino. Obviously, Pochettino had 4 at the same point after their first 10 Premier League games. Santo obviously won 2 games, well, 1 game more than him. Mm-hmm. So, why don't they keep him around?
And it's interesting. You said that they're going to give Conte 100 million war chest to buy players. Mm-hmm. Where were these funds when Pochettino was screaming out for funds? He was saying that he needs players brought in. He was still playing with the same team that pushed for the title a few seasons ago with no kind of a real input in terms of transfers. If you'd have given Poch that money that you've now suddenly found for the likes of Conte, it could have been a totally different story with Tottenham.
It could very, very, very well have been. But at the same time, even though Nuno scored more points than Poch and had more wins than Poch, the stats become a little bit more in terms of like how many points as on goals. Nuno 19th in the league. Poch 9th in the league. Goals scored. Goals scored 5th for Pochettino, 17th for Nuno. Conceded 9th for Poch, 14th for Nuno. I mean, I know that you're the guy for stats normally, but I can't do better than you on that one, Max.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue that I would have comparing the stats from Pochettino and the stats from Nuno is Nuno's only had a very small kind of time to get results and get goals. He also had to deal with the fallout of the Kane saga. Pochettino didn't have all that. Pochettino had a Kane who was firing on all cylinders, passionate about the club. Nuno's had a Kane who clearly doesn't want to be there, has been anonymous for pretty much every game that he's been involved in, and he's had to pick him just because how do you drop a player of Kane's caliber?
If he's not performing, you drop him. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who do they have in replacement though? And
the front three they played against Man City have played that game. They played better than Kane played all season.
I mean, I can agree with that, but the problem will be is if you have a fit Kane, you are almost morally obliged to play him because of just how big of a star he is. He's easily the biggest star for Tottenham. You don't know that Nuno wasn't getting that pressure from Levy to get Kane back scoring, to get Kane back in good graces with Tottenham. So you don't know the political kind of forces that were Nuno was put under. I just think it's a damn shame of hiring somebody, hamstringing him from day one, and then punishing him for the issues that you have created with your kind of the way that you have treated your players.
Indeed, Graham in the chat is saying 1-5, lost 5 in the Premier League. Team with European aspirations can't lose 5 games before the end of October in the league.
And they've struggled in the Europa Conference.
Struggled. Humiliated would be closer. But if you're not if you're not playing at a team which is expected to compete, don't enter it. Oh wait, they beat Leicester to end up in it anyway. They don't lost to Leicester, shouldn't they? Colin McCabe in the chat is saying hello to myself and your good self.
Hello, sir.
Always a pleasure. Right, how about we obviously will touch more on Kane momentarily. How about we talk about the first game of weekend, which was, of course, what some people have called an upset. Leicester City 0, Arsenal 2. I don't feel it's much of an upset. Arsenal have been on the up and up in recent weeks.
Yeah, they've we've bagged on Arsenal over the last 2 seasons here on Radio Tekkers, and it's mainly because they are historically such a huge club. And they've really fallen by the wayside. I think it's like 6 years since they finished in the top 4. But yeah, this was a solid performance on the back of quite a few solid performances. One thing we've always criticised Arsenal for is for not having that span going through the team, having young, passionate players, but not the kind of elder statesmen who are showing the same kind of passion as the youngsters to help mould and build these players. I think now with Aubameyang clearly happy at the club, Lacazette happy at the club, with Ramsdale finding some glorious form and building the team around the likes of Saka and around Emile Smith-Rowe. I think that's showing that Arsenal have now got a span, that they have got backbone, that they can be a team to be feared again. And this result absolutely proves it. They were absolutely superb, played Leicester off the park for long periods of the game, scored 2 really good goals and kept a clean sheet against a Leicester side that have always got goals in them with the likes of Vardy and with the likes of Daka. So this is a very, very impressive result to pick up a win at Leicester away. And Aaron Ramsdale was an absolute superstar. Some of the saves he made were were international class. So as simple and clear as that.
Absolutely. If you keep the form like this all season, he's going to be knocking at a door, and there's no way you can ignore him in the conversation for Qatar if the way he is going, for sure. I mean, we all questioned the fee. We all questioned the fee, and it was ridiculous. We thought at the time it started like a bit of a bargain.
Yeah, and then it's especially when you start diving more into the stats, you can see just how pivotal his performance was for this team. So Arsenal only had 36% of the ball, which is shocking for an Arsenal side. You normally see Arsenal as the team that dominates possession, but they give away nearly 2/3 of the ball to Leicester. Leicester had almost double the amount of shots that Arsenal did, with 16-9, and they had 8 shots on target. So that means 8 times that Ramsdale was called into action, and he kept a clean sheet. That just shows how good of a performance he had. Arsenal had 5 shots of their own on target, 2 of those which led to goals, and that second goal by Smith Rowe was just absolute quality. On a weekend where we got a lot of world-class goals, I thought that Arsenal did really, really well. They were strong at the back. Ben White was superb, especially at the end, keeping Maddison out and keeping Lookman out. Gabriel with the goal early on, but then also solid at the back. I think we're starting to see the formation of a really good partnership with Ben White and Gabriel. Something that we, and I'm going to pat ourselves on the back, we said that this was a really good partnership, that Ben White was a top draw defender, but he needed someone solid at the side of him. And with Gabriel, he's got that. And this is started to look like a really good defence.
Yes, it's a thing of beauty for sure. Conor McCabe in the chat is well, obviously as an Arsenal fan, is obviously waxing lyrical. Arsenal been final winners, and they have been final winners. They had, I think they've, I don't think they're 100%. I think they slipped up against Palace a little bit. They recovered to get a draw, but for most, I think they've lost a game since they won the North London Derby, have they?
They're unbeaten in the last 5, 2 draws and 3 wins. And ironic that Connor was contemplating looking for another team not too long ago. So it just goes to show how a bit of a run of form and a bit of belief in yourself as a team can pay dividends. I mean, this Arsenal side was bottom half of the table, and now they're well in the mix for European spots again. So
we generally did say we did say on Tekkers that we actually were generally saying that Arsenal were in a relegation fight, and we look like we've got an egg on our face at the moment.
But we can only judge off the results and the points that we're showing. And at that time, Arsenal were they had reverted back to how they were for long periods of last season, where they were spineless, where they had no strength going forward. The defense was very, very leaky, and it just goes to show how quickly this Premier League can change, and that's one of the reasons why it's the best league in the world.
It is, and yeah, I'm always going to say that the Premier League has always been my favourite league to watch, and not just because I live in the country. It happens, of course. It's more exciting. All the best players want to come here, unless you are a certain Argentinian, it would seem. But you can't win them all, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's move on to a game which I'm sure you're looking to crow about, sir.
No.
Burnley 3, Brentford 1.
Yes, Burnley doing what pretty much no Premier League team has been able to do all season, and that's dominate against a Brentford side who have shown absolutely no fear in the Premier League. I know Burnley have been in the relegation zone pretty much since day one, but we've played some really, really good football. I know we are usually called the anti-football, lump it forward. We ruin the Premier League, but with the introduction of Maxwell Cornet, I think has been an absolute revelation, and he would, for me, be tipped for bargain of the season. I think we've started to show that we can play some attractive-looking football. The results haven't gone right for us this season, but there's always been a belief there, and this result kind of confirms just how good Burnley can be when everything goes right for them. And even though this is the first time we've ever scored 3 goals in the first half in the Premier League, it probably should have been 5. Cornet having a goal ruled out to the thinnest of offsides. In fact, the red and the blue lines on the VAR were actually crossing, which should have given advantage to the attacker. The rules on VAR are always going to be controversial. But then there was also a penalty shout, which could have been 50-50. But at the end of the day, a 3-1 win, 3 really good goals. The first goal taken by Chris Wood was a glorious first-time shot.
Fantastic.
And then Maxwell Cornet making a goal out of absolutely nothing. This was an amazing performance. We kind of let ourselves down, fallen asleep in the last few minutes, and Brentford were able to score. But all in all, this was a great performance, and it took us out of the relegation zone for a little while, but it certainly gave us a lot to be positive about going forward.
Indeed, and credit to Brentford's goal. It was a very well taken scissors kick, to be fair. Well, though that was a goal worthy of winning the game, let alone getting a consolation. Conor McCabe in the chat is saying, I fully expected Brentford to wipe the floor with Burnley, but I tuned in to this match and was proven wrong.
Wipe the floor? No, I don't think any team has really been wiping the floor with when they've come up against Burnley. I certainly expected Brentford to put up more of a fight than they did.
It was weird. It was a weird game.
Mm-hmm. Brentford had some amazing results. Really kind of took it to a lot of the teams that play flowing football, and maybe that was the issue, that they'd become the team that can go up against people who are playing gorgeous flowing football, and when they come up against Burnley, who are a lot heavier in tackles, a lot more direct, maybe that was a weak point, or maybe it was just that finally Burnley had a little bit of luck. Things started going right for them, and they got the victory that they massively deserved. In terms of stats, Burnley always get outplayed in terms of possession. We are very much a counter-attacking team, but in terms of shots, we outstruck Brentford 15-12. We even got 6 on target compared to Brentford's 5. So that really shows as well how good of a performance Nick Pope put in and the defence put in. But all in all, I'm very, very happy that we finally get the points that our performances have deserved.
Absolutely. I fully loved how much Maxwell Cornet has taken to life at Burnley, and it seems to be getting better and better week on week, as in how much he loves. Credit to our roving reporter and Alex, and to this moment still very fragile from Saturday, Mr. Chris Harris, who was at Turf Moor for the game. We saw a lot picture, obviously, of what at half time. He popped in during half time.
He was drunk.
Drunk is generous, I think. I think his blood, if he tested his blood, it would have been 90% Bevy and Ott, probably, but Benny and Hot, even sorry. But either way, it was a great thing for Burnley. Brentford need to pick themselves back up again, because they don't want to get dragged back down that relegation fight as well. Because Brentford is the Tekkers team of the season. We want to. It's all good. It's all good. Before we move on to the next game, though, we have Ray Cash in the chat saying, "I hate football and I hate you guys for letting me love it."
We will get to your team's shoddy performance later in the show, sir.
To be fair, it was not.
He's a curse. He's been a curse to that team.
It was not a good performance. Speaking of not good performances, yeah, Liverpool 2, Brighton have Albion 2. Now, I was listening along to the live Liverpool FC commentary for this. Well, for most of it, I had to go and get my booster jab halfway through it. So, ironically, I missed the second goal from Brighton. First two goals, literally the case of like, okay, how many we're going to get, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a third goal chalked off, absolutely rightly by VAR, and then
A collapse.
It was really weird.
The goal from Mwepu was outstanding. Very much Son assisted, kind of with the lob on Alisson, who was blinded for the majority of that ball's trajectory. But yeah, it was very much a collapse, and the stats say that as well, because Liverpool had 14 shots, but only 3 on target, which is woeful for Liverpool. The fact that they got 2 goals out of those 3, this could have gone very wrong very, very quickly. So to actually get a point against Brighton, it was still in the higher echelons of the Premier League table. I think this keeps them in 8th, even though they haven't won a game in the last 5, which is 4 draws and a loss. So it seems a draw against Brighton is what you should be expecting. But this Liverpool team, this has to look as drop points, especially on a time when City dropped points, when Chelsea were struggling at times to pick up to get goals in their match. I mean, we'll get onto that later on. This could have been a chance for Liverpool to really push Chelsea at the top of the league, and it feels like a dropping point.
It absolutely is, Meg. Absolutely, it's so tight in the mid-table already. From 5th place down to 11th is 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, so much can change. So quickly.
The loss for Brentford dropped them from 6th to 12th because of all the teams picking up points around them. It's a big difference.
That is, the top 4 start to break away a little bit now already, which it's got to be concerning if you are the red side of North London. Actually, I think the red side of North London will be happy with where they are, to be brutally honest, right now.
Or the red side of Manchester.
I was going to get to that. We'll get to that later on, obviously. As bad Liverpool were in the second half in not taking their chances, credit to Brighton for working at it, and to be fair, were unlucky to not get all 3 points, to be brutally honest. Brighton, credit where it's due, though. I mean, he's done a fantastic job. Got a good, hard-working side there. And
they play attractive football.
Very attractive football. I got Conor Cave in the chat saying that Brighton is a team that shouldn't be slept on, and their 2-2 draw. Liverpool just proved it. Absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely be keeping an eye on Brighton as the season progresses for sure. I'm glad they're out of the way now, if you know what I mean.
Also in the chat, somebody we have both been waxing lyrical about on our respective shows. Mr. Benny Mac doing some great things behind the scenes in Tekkers, and also on the microphone with the waiting room, which is superb. If you even if you've never really been interested in Quantum League, check out that first episode. Yeah, it really sets the stage for what is going to be a brilliant season of the waiting room.
It's fantastic. It is, and I haven't done this for a while. Chef's kiss.
Wow.
It is fantastic. It is a fantastic podcast for something that I've never seen before, but now I want to watch it because of how much enthusiasm these guys had for it. So you've got me hooked, guys. Job done, as far as I'm concerned. Right. Speaking of job done, let's move on from the farce of Liverpool, and let's move on to a game which was a definite upset, Max, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Yes. City versus Palace. And for all what happened on the pitch, for all the records broke by Zaha being the first player in a Palace shirt to score 50 top flight goals, again, football shows its ugly face with the amount of racist abuse hurled at Wilfried Zaha post-match. As Matt says on every single live stream, there is no place in football for racism, and those fans should be absolutely disgusted with themselves.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of it until the next morning, obviously, and like most of us weren't, unfortunately. And I mean, I struggle to say that either fans of any club, let alone Man City, because you're not a fan. You're just a troll hiding behind a keyboard, trying to insult somebody because that's all you can do. Thing is we've seen that people using those words is terrible and can have long-lasting impact sometimes.
Absolutely.
I mean, yes, Zaha has had this so many times that it's almost a norm, and that's sick to say.
Yeah, well, he even said on his social medias that he doesn't want anybody saying, "Oh, I feel sympathy for you," or "Yeah, this shouldn't be happening." He said because it happens all the time. He says he wants action. He wants things to happen to these racists because he shouldn't have to put up with this. No player should have to put up with this, and all the. You can understand why he's frustrated about the kneeling and the all the kind of the buzzwords and the rhetoric on social media. Says because it feels to him like it's all talk and no action. Because after months and months of these kind of ways to show you are united against racism, he's still suffering from racism, and it's as prevalent as ever. So you can see exactly why he is so frustrated.
Absolutely, and that's why. I mean, that's why I continue to drum it home every week. It may sound like a broken record sometimes, but the fact matter is that it's people like us who need to stand up and say it's not. It is enough is enough. And of course, if you ever do experience any of that at a game or you hear it at any point, use the website below,
Yeah,
and you can
absolutely.
report it. And you can report it anonymously as well.
The clubs need to be taking action. The social media companies like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook need to be taking action. We can't just keep standing by and not doing things about this, especially when you're an entity with such power as these social medias. You should be the first people taking a stand and hitting these racists hard and showing them that this is not acceptable.
Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that happened. And but let's talk about what happened in the actual game itself, Mag, shall we? Let's get back to the actual Man City and Palace game itself. We Si in the chat has just jumped in, by the way. Hello, Si, of course. Benny's teammate on with more coming on Friday. Benny said apparently on the waiting room. Looking forward to that. But Benny brings it back to topic saying Palace played really well. This was an extremely efficient performance by Crystal Palace,
and it's a very rare poor defence by City. Aymeric Laporte was seemingly channeling his inner Harry Maguire with the mistakes that he was making. For the first goal, he had so much time on the ball. He just couldn't decide what he wanted to do, and then was dispossessed by Conor Gallagher, and that led to Zaha being through for the first goal, and then not much longer after that, Laporte ends up getting dismissal for a professional foul. So the City were woefully defensive, but that doesn't take away from a brilliant Palace performance. I think the whole team knew that this was a hard task, even with 10 men. They still struggled at times, and there was a point where we thought there was an equaliser with Jesuit getting the goal after a good play by Phil Foden, but it was ruled offside, and it took till the dying minutes for Palace to put this game to bed with a really good goal by Conor Gallagher. But yeah, great performance by Crystal Palace.
Indeed, and what I didn't like towards the end of the second half was the way that, and I am going by what I heard, because I was clicking back and forth. According to what I was hearing via the Soccer Saturday commentary, the City players were trying to wind Zaha up to get him sent off before half time.
Yep,
and
it's because he's an emotional player. He always plays with his heart on his sleeve, and he gets upset very, very easily. And he was targeted by the City players. Luckily, the ref didn't put up with that and sent off Laporte for very, very fairly for essentially wrestling Zaha to the ground. The people smiling were the people who put in the best performances. I mean, Guaita was superb in the nets. Gallagher, Sahar, and Elise were brilliant going forward. I think the only person who really had a quiet game for Palace was probably Benteke. But aside from that, this was just a solid performance from the whole of the team.
Benteke did a lot of work off the ball, though, in this game. He did a lot of stuff working. That's the thing about Benteke. Even when he wasn't scoring for Liverpool, he was being mobile quite a lot. So Vieira's getting the best out of him.
Absolutely.
He's proving that he can manage at the top level because he's got some good results. Should have beaten Arsenal. Did beat the champions, but both from away as well. So I don't want to see. I'm glad we've already beaten Paris now out of the way now. Because I don't want to face them anytime soon. They're on a good run of form right now. We'll talk about some more weren't they red cards later on, because a lot of people, there's been some controversy about it, about the consistency this weekend. Into the chat quickly, Conor McCabe is saying Radio Tekkers and their friends do not condone racism and stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. We absolutely do. Thank you, Conor, for standing by my side. Graham from Good Cop Bad Cop is saying, had to check out Matt's appearance on In Kayfabe. Very good, sir. We'll catch up on the volley at times too now. You are very good at that, Graham. Thank you very much for doing so. I would also like to point out that when that was recorded, it was episode 137 of Good Cop Bad Cop, and we've just released 167. So it was 30 weeks ago we recorded that, which I think might have been January. Although my math isn't that great, as we know. Before we move on to the next game, Conor McCabe in the chat saying, not for the Premier League, but how is England doing in UEFA World Cup qualifying? Well, if I remember correctly, we are top of the group with 6 wins and 2 draws.
Yeah, we're 3 points clear of Poland. Out of our last 5 results, we've got 3 wins and 2 draws. But yeah, we could have finished. We could have kind of solidified our qualifying with some better performances in those draws. But it is what it is. We are in the driving seat. We're very much the team to beat in that group.
Yes, that is very much the case. Right. On to the next fixture from this weekend, mate, which was, of course, Newcastle 0, Chelsea 3. This was a case of not if Chelsea were going to score, but when Chelsea were going to score. Yeah. They seem to have been like homing beacons on the crossbar and the post in this game.
So before we go into the match, let's look at some stats.
Please.
Chelsea had 79% possession. So four, almost 5 times the amount of possession that Newcastle had. They had 19 shots, 6 of them on target. Newcastle only had 6 shots and 1 of them on target. How they didn't let a goal in the first half was unreal. Chelsea were just peppering that goal with shot after shot, and it actually took 2 worldies from Reece James to break the deadlock. The first one we thought was superb. The second one was just absolutely 10 times better. Just a crack into the top corner, brilliant goal. And then the penalty. I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes later. Jorginho stepped up and took it. Personally, if that were me, I would have been pushing for Reece James to take that penalty just so he could get the hat trick. It's not often you get a defender getting a hat trick, but this whole Chelsea team played really, really well. Still playing that kind of strikerless formation with the injuries to Lukaku and to Werner. But everybody stepped up. Reece James was superb. Kai Havertz had another great game. It's unfortunate that he hasn't been getting a lot of goals because I think his performances have certainly shown he's a very much a top draw player. Even Ross Barkley had a really good game. And it's just kind of shows the state of the problem here at Newcastle now, that they were so dominated at home. The Saudi investment team have a lot of work to do. This is yet another horrific performance by Newcastle.
Yes, as if to prove your point there, Meg, Conor McCabe in the chat is saying that there's a rumour that Newcastle are going to make a €30 million bid for Tony Cruz in January.
He would be mental to go there. We've spoke at length about the issues with Newcastle, and they need to be realistic. Just what kind of caliber of player they can attract. It's all well and good being the richest club in the world. Yes, these players can get wages that no other team is going to be willing to pay them, but they are in a relegation battle. They have no sniff of being in Europe, and if you are a top player in European football, you want to be in the top competitions. You want to be facing the likes of PSG, the likes of Juve, Real Madrid, Barcelona. You want to be in these big competitions. Newcastle are years away from that yet. Absolutely years. So I think all the rumours of them going for high caliber players need to go out the window. They need players that can fight a relegation dog battle, because right now they don't have any.
Don't get me wrong, Tony Cruz would be a great signing. Obviously, he'd be a fantastic signing.
It's football manager player though. It's how us as fans would play that we would be able to get these players in. In reality, nobody's going to look at Newcastle and think, yeah, they're offering me loads and loads of money, but look at where they are in the table. How am I meant to be in the shout for European places next season, or in for international call-ups next season when I'm playing in a relegation dogfight? Yeah, I just don't think it's feasible.
Absolutely. We will. While we'll stop talking about Newcastle for a moment, because I wanted to address something you were talking about with regards to Ross Barkley having a good game. He did have a good game. In fact, he got a 7.6 from on the BT Sport rater. George, he only played for 25 minutes, I think, give or take. And he was the fourth best Chelsea player according to people voting on the entire game. Incidentally, Jorginho, who took the penalty off of Reece James, Arsenal that he is, and he was literally the third worst player.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the likes of Rudiger. Rudiger's been superb this season, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying he had a poor performance, but he had not a lot to do. None of the Chelsea defenders really were called into action for this game, so it was very much a front seven game for Chelsea. So it's interesting that the likes of Rudiger and Christensen and Thiago Silva got such high ratings. But Havertz, the only thing that guy is missing now is a goal. Once he learns where the goal is, once he gets a few goals under his chest, I suppose, he's going to be a world beater, because he's putting in great performances recently.
Speaking of great performances, the chat is lighting up all of a sudden, and it's fantastic as always. Conor McCabe is saying, if I was a top player in Europe, I'd rather go to a Champions League contender like PSG or Bayern than go and play second-tier football in England.
And that's the issue. I mean, a lot of the players who are linked to Newcastle now it is paper talk. It's as simple and clear as that. Papers put together 2 and 2. Newcastle got loads of money. All of a sudden, they'll be in for the elite of the elite. It really doesn't work like that. The players have to be attracted to the club. and no player worth their salt is going to be attracted to Newcastle just based on money, especially if you are playing for a Champions League level team now, or even a Europa League level team. You're not going to want to take that step down to Newcastle. It's as simple and clear as that.
As Graham from Good Cop says, Tony would be really cruise if he ends up at Newcastle. The dead task terrible. Size says in the chat, Tony Cruz is not my football manager. I don't think he was born yet.
Check the Bayern youth side.
And Graham read with a stat for you, Max. Reece James is now the top scorer for Chelsea in the Premier League.
Yep, and he's been absolutely superb. I mean, it comes to something when him and Chilwell are going neck for neck for goals.
They are they're turning into the equivalent of Trent and Robbo for them, for sure. And nice bit of friendly competition. I like to see a bit of this.
And it's interesting that the two top teams in the league right now have two of the best attacking fullbacks in the world.
Probably arguably the best left back in England in terms of Reece James. Certainly the best left back in Scotland. No offense, Kieran Tierney. And probably the best two right backs in England. But you could argue the whole of Europe. You could argue the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
But absolutely phenomenal moment. So feel free to keep putting stats in the chat, Graham. We love those sorts of stats, especially
thank you very much.
Mag loves stats. Speaking of someone who loves a stat, this is one of my tenuous links again, Mag. I do apologise. Watford and Southampton. Claudio Ranieri did not continue his run of wins. It seemed like the every game may have been a fluke almost. Your thoughts on Watford Southampton?
Yeah, this was a drag to get through, and there weren't many highlights really. I mean, Southampton certainly had the way better amount of possession. I think they had like 60% of the ball. In terms of shots, it was actually quite even. Southampton having 12 and Watford having 10. And Southampton only got one on target, which was the goal. So very unlucky for Watford. I think they can certainly be aggrieved that their attacking output hasn't led to anything. But the issue is they were outclassed on the pitch. They were always second to the ball. Southampton and Alex McCarthy in goal was absolutely superb. Another kind of Aaron Ramsdale level performance, but Southampton just looked more hungry for this game, and they really needed the points because they were firmly locked into a relegation battle with Watford. I think Watford before this game, Watford were actually 2 points above them. So Southampton definitely needed the win. Left it till pretty late to not in terms of goal. I think the goal was like in the 20th minute, but in terms of kind of securing the win. But yeah, this was a hard game to watch, but Southampton can look at themselves as being very fortunate to come away with anything.
Kind of saying poor Watford.
Well,
we agree a little bit, to be fair.
I would have said poor Watford. I think their board makes some questionable decisions, and taking that Watford job is kind of like having the sword of Damocles hanging over your head. But I found out some news recently about their sponsor. They're sponsored by Stake.com, which is an online casino. It's actually been embroiled in a big kind of issue with influencers trying to convince their fans to gamble on this website, even though it's not regulated to trade in the US or the UK. So it's interesting that the board have got into bed with a very shady sponsor.
Sounds like Rich Energy and Haas all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about shady, Graham throwing shade at me here in the chat. What about this stat? Matt claims he hasn't missed a WWE pay-per-view in 20 years, yet he doesn't watch the Saudi events. Keyword there is pay-per-view event, not network special.
I mean, the Saudi events are the house shows.
Exactly, they're network specials, Graham. They're not pay-per-view events. And you got that from in cave. That's absolutely right. I haven't missed a pay-per-view in that time, but that was not a pay-per-view event, Graham. Right, so and that is my use of sticking to it. Okay, so we're moving on to the next game, which was the last game from Saturday, which was a game we covered here on Tekkers, you and myself, Tottenham and Manchester United.
Yes.
Now, Man United surprised us with their formation for this game, and it was
very shocking, almost like Ole didn't have a clue what he was doing.
And yet, at the same time, I look back and they beat City with this formation last season, and they beat Chelsea with it.
Yeah, I mean, it come off to me as incredibly defensive, with a back three of Lindelof, Varane, and Maguire, Shaw and Wan-Bissaka in that kind of attacking fullback role. But both of those have been really off form this season. So, and then he went with the double pivot of McTominay and Fred. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, the attacking lineup was an old Cavani, an even older Ronaldo, and Bruno Fernandes. So this felt like Ole was clutching at straws, especially after the woeful performance against Liverpool. This was make or break. I mean, we said it for both managers. We didn't kind of realize the extent to how make or break it actually was for Nuno. But yeah, Ole kind of has this knack of pulling a victory out just as he needs it, and this happened against Tottenham. Ronaldo, who was terrible against Liverpool, was outstanding against Tottenham. Cavani was superb. I mean, he's so consistently superb that him playing always kind of gives the team a lift. And even Maguire, who has been very, very poor, he upped his game. Not brilliantly, but at least he wasn't making the ridiculous mistakes him and Shaw was making against Liverpool. But this was a much better performance by Man United, saving Ole's skin, essentially, and then costing Nuno his job.
Absolutely. As Graham mentioned in the chat, Ole's job in danger from being replaced by Conte, wins 3-0, then Nuno goes. So Conte to Spurs and Ole's job is safe from Conte. Doesn't mean it's safe in general, though.
Steve Bruce is still lurking.
And so is Sam Allardyce.
Jesus.
Could you imagine?
Jesus, that's grim. I mean, Nuno is now on the cards.
Nuno is available, and people are still linking Zidane as well. So it's not like there's
Zidane has poo-pooed this so many times. He says he doesn't want to manage in the Premier League. He doesn't want to manage Manchester United. His eye is firmly on the France job.
I'm just saying that.
No, I know.
Always linked with it.
It's paper talk. But in terms of stats, Tottenham had 50% of the ball, 58% of the ball to Man United's 42. So it just shows how poor a performance this was from Tottenham. They had 9 shots compared to Man United's 10, but 0 on target, where Man United scored 3 goals out of 4 on target. So it's absolutely night and day performances. Again, Kane was absolutely horrific. No passion for the club. No fight. The game had, especially at the beginning of the first half and then the second half, it was very, very scrappy. Lots of players ended up getting booked at the end. It was just the defensive work from Romero, Davis, Eric Dyer was non-existent. And Man United just had their absolute way with Tottenham.
It worries me. Generally worries me about Tottenham. It generally worries me because I think that because Conte's in advance, or he hasn't got the job officially yet, but it looks like he got the job. He's got to put them brakes on fast because they can cartwheel down that table very quickly if they're not careful. Graham, calling more time in the chat again. I know I sent it in DM, but if Steve Bruce is still available, we should get him. I know he's old, but he's still be better than Maguire.
Can you imagine Bruce and Pallister back to right the ship at Man United?
One would argue. I will say that Gary Neville did say after the game that this does not let anyone off the hook, this result. Because, and I'm going to be honest here, as we said at the time, this was not Man United playing well. This was Spurs playing poorly.
I mean, yeah, I thought Man United...
They took their goals well, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I thought Man United were better than they have been in recent weeks, and certainly better than they were against Liverpool. Not outstanding, certainly not to the level of the Man United that dominated for so long, but they certainly played better. But in saying that, they couldn't have played any worse, I suppose.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as we'll find out later on, you can play worse, it seems, given what someone said in their interview after the game tonight. Yeah, we'll move on. We talked at length about Tottenham and Man United on the main show, which we, of course, you should go and check in the archive because it was, as always, was a cracker. Thanks to Mags, mainly because he is awesome. Before we move on, though, sorry in the chat is saying counter-attacking football again. It's all we seem to be able to do with any type of quality. Again, the issue is the midfield. No one in there to control the game. So counter-attacking is all we have left.
I honestly think the issue is Ronaldo. The issue is buying Ronaldo so Man City couldn't have him, which I understand. There's a very emotional link there, but it meant a complete overhaul of the way Man United were playing. I think getting in Sancho was a good move. I thought that there were definitely positives there, but kind of like the Van de Beek issue, Sancho's been left on the sidelines and is just not getting the opportunities that a £73 million player should be getting. Having Fred and McTominay in that midfield who were destroyed by Liverpool to the point where Fred was lucky to be staying on the pitch. Then keeping with that pairing when you had the likes of Matic, when you had the likes of Van de Beek who are much better players in that position than Fred and McTominay are, it beggars belief of why these players are at your club in the first place. Why have you got £150 million worth of players sat on the bench and you're playing the same players who put in such a woeful performance against Liverpool? But it did work. It worked this time. It doesn't mean it's going to work again. But it was a reprieve, I suppose, for Ole.
It was a reprieve for Solskjaer for sure. For now, anyway. Who knows what's going to happen this weekend for the big game at lunchtime on Saturday, of course, which we are covering live on Tekkers.
Yes, we are.
Myself, you, and Tanner is all going to be here for the Manchester derby.
And for Tanner, that's an early start. I think it works out to be about 7:30 in the morning over there for Tanner.
Yes, it does, yes. So that's going to be an early one. So make sure you guys are here for that because that's going to be brilliant, of course. We're going to move on now to the Sunday games. We're going to start with a game which had big effect at the bottom of the table, of course. Norwich versus Leeds, which had 5 minutes of absolute madness, to face it.
Yeah, again, a game that outside that 5 minutes was a struggle to watch. But that few minutes between Rafinha scoring and then the equaliser and then Rodrigo getting the winners, that was some really exciting football. Leeds desperately needed this win. I think we're getting to the point where perhaps Bielsa ball has been found out and they're not playing as well as they did last season. They're certainly not having that kind of flowing football that they had. And maybe that's because they've had some major injuries. The likes of Bamford's been out, Arling's been out, Phillips has been out for long periods. But Leeds should have destroyed this Norwich team. This is a team that lost 7-0 to Chelsea. A Chelsea team that had no striker. and they lost 7-0. So for Leeds to struggle to put away this Norwich team, that's not a good reflection on them. I would have preferred a Norwich win, to be fair, because it would have meant that Burnley stayed out of the relegation zone. But I don't think that this was an amazing performance by either team. The fact that Norwich had 48% of the ball when they've been averaging about 35% just shows how much of the game Leeds give away. Norwich actually outstruck Leeds in terms of shots, 14 shots to Leeds 13. The clinicalism was through the Leeds having 6 on target rather than Norwich, who only had 3 on target. But yeah, this was not a good performance by either team. And aside from that 5 minutes, it was a bore to watch.
It was a little bit. It's 2-1. You think it was some excitement there, and apart from 5 minutes, it really wasn't. It's not quite in Tottenham versus Blackburn territory for me. It's in both boring game I've ever seen in my life. And that was 2-0. It was the most boring game I've ever seen in my life. We have people in the chat caught the trouble, but again, Sai's got Graham is saying first he'll benefit by an hour, as we mentioned our clock last week. That is a good thing, yes.
Yeah, so last time we did a lunchtime kickoff, Tan actually started at 6:30 in the morning.
Indeed. And that's actually earlier than that because we actually meet before that. Si's got a little essay for us about Sancho. He has real competition in Greenwood and Rashford. They've been delivering. Van der Beek is still unproven. He hasn't done anything and looks lightweight, needs more game time. But cannot give more game time when struggling. And he looks lightweight and easy to dispossess. To be fair, problem is, he doesn't play him.
Yeah, the problem is you can't really tell that from the very minimal amount of minutes that he's got. I think you said in the Liverpool game that Salah had more goals this season than Van der Beek has had minutes. So I think it's hard to
at Old Trafford.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to judge him on that, especially when McFred are performing so poorly. Surely that's the time to give a player like Van der Beek some opportunities, but it's like not only what can he do to get into the team, but how poor does other players have to be dropped out of the team?
Indeed. Graham in the chat is saying Norwich 2 points from the last 60.
That's no wins in 20 games.
That's an amazing statistic. Hodafina was amazing again. Perhaps not. Then he says.
No, I think Rafinha was good.
The one bright light.
Yeah, I think he's Leeds a shining star, but you can't be amazing on your own. You need a team behind you, and Leeds recently just haven't come out to play football. Maybe it'll be different once they get the likes of Bamford back, once they get the likes of Arling back. But yeah, this Leeds is not the same Leeds that we saw last season.
Graham talking about after school specials here. They wanted Van der Beek goes to go back to Dawson's Creek.
Different Van der Beek. Is that Jason?
James Van der Beek. James Van der Beek, yeah. And but Sai saying, yep, Cat 22 needs more game time, but and he hasn't played, you don't know what you're getting. I'd pick him.
I'd pick him and Matic, because at least with Matic, you know he's solid, and then he can provide that defensive stability to allow Van der Beek to show what he can do. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you can't say that he hasn't tried. Whereas with Fred and McTominay, they've had time and they have been poor, and they continually and consistently are poor. So you have to change something up.
Indeed. This is not Tekkers, this is accurate. Someone else who's been very poor recently is Aston Villa. Very poor recently. That's 3. I think that's 3 on the spin they've lost and lost badly. This talk us through it, Max. This is heartbreaking for a team which invested heavily this summer. They've
lost their last 4 games, and as
you said, before.
Yeah, they've been woeful. The issue is they brought in so many good players and some really top quality players. It's just that they are not gelling together as a team, and they're really missing that kind of output that Jack Grealish brought. they started fairly brightly as well in this game. I know they went down to an early goal, but they certainly were creating quite a few good chances in the first half an hour or so, and were well deserved of the equaliser when Watkins popped up for the goal, and then it just all fell to bits. Declan Rice scored a worlder to give West Ham the lead again. Ezri Konsa was involved in an interesting kind of section of play. It looked like it was House who was going to get booked when the ref blew his whistle, but it was actually Ezri Konsa had essentially clattered into Jared Bowen. He got sent off, which basically ended the game for Aston Villa. We then saw Fornals score with when Jared Bowen laid the ball across to him, basically to tapping into an open net, and then Lanzini did the same for Bowen, who's really kind of struggled in front of goal. So for him to give a goal essentially to Fornals and then get one back in exactly the same kind of where was kind of poetic justice, and it just shows how big of a collapse that Villa had, that they let in 2 goals that looked exactly the same, fell for the same tricks twice, and they really missed Konza when he went off. Their team fell apart defensively once he got sent off, and West Ham are looking very, very dangerous, especially when you consider how many kind of how many fronts they're competing on this year. West Ham with Europe and the league, they are 4th place. They're still in their challenge
and the cup. They've not City out for cup.
Yeah, exactly. This is a brilliant West Ham team to watch, and normally West Ham are a very kind of aggressive, sometimes dirty team to watch. This West Ham team plays some glorious looking football. It's really, really good to see.
Indeed, as Graham in the chat said, West Ham under Moyes are not the team you want to face when you need a win. Absolutely. West Ham are lethal, and they are who Liverpool are playing on Sunday. So that's going to be an interesting one. I believe they're at home as well, so it's going to be exciting. That's going to be exciting after the big game against Atletico Madrid on Wednesday night. Talking a bit about Aston Villa, still matters, of course, though. Dean Smith is the odds-on favourite to get the sack next.
I would not be surprised, because this is an Aston Villa who were challenging for Europe, kind of fell at the last hurdle. But the loss of Grealish, which isn't really his fault. Grealish was always going to outgrow Aston Villa, and I think they got great money for him. And I think they made great signings to replace him, but it just all seems to be going wrong for him. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dean Smith be relieved of his position very soon. I mean, they're now 15th, firmly in that mix for fighting relegation. I think they'll be fine. I think the players will eventually gel, but it's not looking good for them.
It's not at all, is it? Daniel Farke is second favourite. Though how he's not first is beyond me. Solskjaer's third favourite. Rafa Benitez has come into 4th favourite tonight. Well, and Ranieri is joint 5th with Bielsa.
Ranieri should always be the first favourite. Any Watford manager should always be the first favourite, because you could win 5 games in a row and still have your head on the line at Watford. But yeah, this Aston Villa performance was terrible. They only had 42% of the ball at home. They were outshot 21-9. 8 shots on target for West Ham, 3 for Villa. This is a scary, scary West Ham side to come against. And Graham said something in the chat which is absolutely spot on. West Ham under Moyes are not the team you want to face when you need a win. I think you can actually take off the when you need a win. I think this West Ham under Moyes are just not a team you want to face.
No, and in fact, I put my money where my mouth is. This one, Max. I actually put the bet on for this. I actually put a bet.
You put 30 pence.
No, it's not for this. Not for this game. For the end of the season, I put a tenner on them to win the league.
On West Ham to win the league.
Yes.
Listen, kids, don't do drugs. That's just
100-1.
Still, don't. That's £10 thrown away.
Leicester
Don't do drugs.
Leicester won at 5,000-1. Just saying.
Yes, that was an anomaly.
I'm just getting a lot of similar vibes here.
Okay, so I mean,
that's in response to what Conor McCabe in the chat was saying. Yeah. Champions League champions this season.
They're only 5 points behind the league leaders. They're actually joint with Chelsea as the informed team with only one loss out of the last 5. So it does make sense on terms of paper, but realistically, it's still a long, hard slog. And with them battling on so many different fronts, they will drop off. I think they'll be probably fighting for Europa spots again.
If I lose a tenner, I lose a tenner, Mag. Then a day I could win £1 grand.
You could. You won't, but you could.
I could. Before we move on to the next game, which is of course the last one, we've got
and this is from Graham. For people who don't understand betting, Matt has just lost his money. He hasn't lost his money. He's willingly gave that money away.
Graham, when I win that bet, I'm going to ask for an apology. Because it is now on the record. Graham also saying apparently Barcelona is interested in getting VDB on loan in January. That would be
good signing.
They certainly need him. They're down in 8th place at the moment in La Liga.
Yes. It's looking grim.
It is not good. Sorry in the chat is saying I'm off, fellas. Thank you for football chat. And remember, if your answer is ever Victor Lindelof, you are 100% asking the wrong questions.
Okay, so
who has his own appreciated society? He does.
Yeah, who was the best player for Man United against Liverpool? It was Victor Lindelof, and that's only because he wasn't involved in anything.
That's still the wrong question to be asking, as far as concerned. William Hill of that. I don't bet with an Irish bookmaker. It's fine. But okay, so
that sounds vaguely xenophobic.
No, I bet with another Irish bookmaker. Right, so I'm going to move on.
Are you a Paddy Power guy? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. We hear you. Anyway, moving on to the last game of the weekend, which was while Chain Wrestling was going on, this second half was going on.
No, I caught the first half because I'm dedicated like that. This Everton, what are they doing? They seem to be this season's Jekyll and Hyde team. One time you'll get a good performance out of them, but more often than not, you'll get terrible ones. And I think now this is the third loss on the bounce in the league that they've had. Wolves, who haven't exactly been free scoring, shall we say? I mean, they've picked up victories. Yeah, that's goes without saying. But in terms of goals, they've only got 11 in 10 games, and yet Wolves could have easily had 4 or 5 in this game. In fact, they had the ball in the net 3 times. A great first goal from Max Kilman and Jimenez, even though with that headband, and good on him from coming back from the horrific injury that he had, but he looked like he was playing in football in a beanie hat. Wolves were having their way with Everton in this first half. Michael Keane and Alan were arguing like they were Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire. Just defensive error after defensive error after defensive error.
I've got some stats here, Max. You obviously love the stats. Obviously, at half time, the stats were 69% to 31% in favour of Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Shots 8-3 in favour of Wolves, 4-0 in favour of Wolves on target, and that was at half time. Second half, however, it was a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, well, I actually turned the TV off when Everton were getting booed off the pitch at half time. So I'd be interesting to hear how they kind of almost recovered. I mean, they did get a goal, but the stats clearly, after what you've just said, the stats showed that they must have had a better second half in terms of output. In terms of possession, no, they are just as bad. But they certainly seem to have more output in the second half. So how did that second half go?
They had a lot of possession, but aside from obviously they actually managed to beat the goalkeeper, who, by the way, I think he's doing a really good job for the most part for Wolves. I mean, they're 7th in the league now, after all, so they're doing something right. It's right out of nowhere to 7th in the league again. Sarr had very little to deal with until the second half, and for the most part, he dealt with things pretty well. Obviously, it did break the deadlock, but the response on Twitter from Everton fans has been Benitez out. If you think that's toxic, wait till the next home game. The Everton fans have turned, even though they didn't like you in the first place. It's going to be brutal.
Their next home game is next Sunday against Tottenham. So that match may end with 2 managers out of a job.
Already? You think the Conte will be sacked already?
No, well, Conte is not set to finalise his deal till Tuesday.
Next week or this week?
Oh yeah, that may be this week. Yeah, so that's Conte may be in charge. Yeah, I mean, but two teams that will be maybe switching managers very soon
for sure. Because I think that Newcastle are waiting for Rafa to become available for sure. Because I think
he enjoyed himself there. Yeah, he really enjoyed himself there.
He was, and to be fair,
which would leave the door open for Fonseca at Everton.
It would, and I think they could do with his sort of playing style for sure. I know that Calvert-Lewin was in the Sky Sports punditry studio this afternoon. A lot of people were confused as to why he was there. Some people thought he'd retired because he was injured.
Well, no, he was just picking up some extra
money,
I suppose. Yeah,
he had a thigh injury, so he couldn't play. But some people generally in the comments, because I was watching it back, and they're like he's clearly he's injured and he clearly can't play, so he must have retired. I'm like, you guys really don't know what you're talking about, do you? Makes me like a genius, Max.
Yeah, but in the half that I watched in this game, I thought Hwang for Wolves has been superb in the games that he's played. Absolutely just on fire, so hard to deal with. But this was piss poor defending. Again, Michael Keane, captain of the club, terrible. Ben Godfrey, awful. Holtag, terrible. Jordan Pickford, how is he still England's number one? How is this a thing? He's been so poor in form. He shouldn't even be considered for England's number one. When you're looking at the likes of Pope, who's putting in great performances, Ramsdale, who's been absolutely superb for Arsenal. How is Pickford still England's number one? He must have something on Southgate.
I was about to say exactly the same word, Mags, almost word for word. We're gonna have to add it to our bingo square, I think, because it does seem that some players have got something on the managers for them to keep being picked week in, week out when they're not doing well. Mm-hmm. Jordan Pickford he was okay at the Euros, don't get me wrong, but he's certainly not been the best English goalkeeper so far this season. Pope had a great game, again at the Brentford game, for example. Ramsdale is banging on that door right now. He's arguably the best English goalkeeper in the league at the moment.
Yep, absolutely. He's so good, and I think Everton are really, really missing a goal threat. Obviously, with DCL being out injured, they've relied a lot on Rondon, who is still, for me, not match fit. Whenever he comes on the pitch, he looks like he's already tired. And then you've got Richarlison, who he may be the most Jekyll and Hyde player in the Premier League, because one match he can be absolutely unplayable, and then matches like this, he's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. And if you cannot depend on your Brazilian forward to be a goal threat, then you have got major problems.
This is true. Rondon got a 2.9, by the way.
I mean, he was only on the pitch for a minute, a minute and then added time, and he looked worn out.
Holtag, though, Mags, our girlfriend Mason Holtag, got a 3.5.
Shocking.
Yeah.
The whole of the Everton defence were terrible. Aside from maybe Seamus Coleman in
Got a 4.4, yeah.
in the bits that I saw, but Keane was awful. Mason Holtag was awful. Ben Godfrey made so many mistakes. Yeah, it was a piss poor performance by Everton.
In fact, the player who got the best rating was Gordon, who came on with 12 minutes to go for Everton.
So 12 minutes of play, and he was the best player on the pitch for that team. That just shows how shocking you are.
He was by quite some margin, and picked for a second.
Well, I mean, probably more because of the amount of shots peppered towards him. But even Pickford, I thought was gash.
Indeed. Graham saying goosebumps, thinking the same words too. I'm guessing that's about Pickford being a one. Let's concentrate a bit more on Wolves, Ramo. We're talking about Jimenez scoring his first goal back at Molineux. It's his 50th goal for the club, which was he suffered. So fantastic for that. But also Kilman, his first goal for the club. And really good goal.
Kilman's the kid who came through futsal as well, I think, isn't he? So yeah, it just shows that you can. There are many different paths to making it as a professional footballer. But his goal was really well taken, and the calm chip by Jimenez was solid. You would think that losing a player like Jota, who was such a force for Wolves, would have left them maybe struggling, but yeah, I think there's a lot to be positive about with Wolves. Trincao is really coming into his own. Hwang has been an absolute force, and this is a side that didn't even have Traore playing. I don't even think he got off the bench. Fabio Silva only got on for the dying seconds, so there's certainly players there that they're the backbone of a really good team. And then you look at Sa in the nets; he's been so good. One of the better keepers this season. So, Graham in the chat, Mags Saeed, I think he's had a stroke whilst tapping.
Wang
That sounds mildly xenophobic there, Graham.
No, he's doing a FNAF in the posh short on I'm guessing.
Okay.
Graham's trying to type fast stuff. Mobile, I'm guessing.
It's Hwang Hee-chan.
What Graham. I will say is to keep talking about Hwang is that he this is going to be the hardest thing for Wolves, holding on to him.
Yeah. Has he come on a permanent, or is he still on loan?
I will double check that for you quickly, Mags. Apparently that comment is from Finbar Saunders from the Viz comics, apparently. I know that
so he's on loan from Leipzig.
But
he looks an absolute force. He looks an absolute force.
Indeed. I mean, he played 20 times for Leipzig, never scored for him. He's played 6 games for Wolves. He's scored 4 already.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
Say equals Eid said. Okay.
We'll
Graham, the Viz aficionado, apparently.
He is, because he was clearly born in the 1920s. When it's all good though, Graham. It's all good. Always happy to have the jokes, which are clearly dad jokes. He's a dad, not a joke. That's not a gag. He is. Right. So, So we've gone through all 10 games, Max. Who would you say who gave you the performance of the weekend? Do you think, player-wise?
Are you actually being serious?
Is it Maxwell Cornet?
It's fucking Maxwell Cornet.
To be fair,
Maxwell Cornet. Yeah, he's. I say this every performance that Burnley have. He is so much elevated the football that Burnley play. It's unreal. It's very rare that one player can make such a difference to a club. But he's the kind of player who should come to Burnley. And Burnley, when we get players of this caliber, we're always a stepping stone. We're always kind of like a club where they come to rebuild their reputation, or they come as a way to get in the shop window for bigger clubs. He doesn't come across like that at all. He's the first in at training. He's the last one to go. He's always kind of helping push the other players. He's an absolute god with the fans, always staying behind to sign merchandise. He's such a passionate player. He's so damn good. He's elevated the whole of the town. There's such a buzz going around Burnley because of Maxwell Cornet. He's way better than we should ever have any right to have at Burnley. This is a player who has Champions League experience. He's a Champions League level player. I would not be surprised to see him at the end of the season sell for 3-4 times what we paid for him. He's that good. And this performance against Brentford absolutely shown that. If I were to be less biased, I'd probably say Reece James for scoring 2 worldies. And fuck you to Jorginho for not at least offering Reece James that chance to get his hat-trick. That's a bullshit move. But yeah, for me, it's Maxwell Cornet.
I have to agree with you, Max. Maxwell Cornet is a phenomenal talent, and he had an amazing weekend, and maybe should have had a hat-trick. Graham with an amazing pun in the chat. Is turf more than Maxwell's house?
Wow, that joke is gonna cost you, Graham.
He's a star, which costs you a few bucks as well. So
yeah, very few though. I mean, 13 million. 13 million for him, and he's already repaid that back in spades.
He has. I'm very pleased to be able to witness what he can do. So many amazing new players coming through this year. We're having Cornet coming through. We're having Hwang come through. We're having Javier before he got injured come through. We've got seeing players righting wrongs. I mean, look at Ramsdale, the weekend that he had as well at Arsenal. Mm-hmm. He's certainly in contention for it as well, but didn't quite make it on this occasion because goalkeepers really have to be exceptional performances, and some of the things were good, but not as good in previous weeks. So, I had a point to make about Aaron Ramsdale, but it's gone from my head. It's completely slipped from my mind, unfortunately. So yeah, that's pretty much all wrapped up then. So unless there's anything else for you to for us to round up, Max. Anything else you want to bring up, or should we round things up and then get on now here?
Yeah, I think I just want to stamp home the point about racism. There is no place in football or in life in general for the amount of racism that these players have to go through. It's disgusting the way that you treat your fellow human being as a people, and we all should strive to do better.
Absolutely, and we obviously will continue to say that before we kick off on every game that we cover here on Radio Tekkers, and we encourage you all to report everything you find, be it online or elsewhere, either down below or via report buttons on the social media platforms, because they need to do more, and if you keep flooding them with the information, they have to do more. Eventually, they're going to have to. Mm-hmm. So, Max, how about we give our socials we can get out of here? After a good stuff, your lordship.
So you can follow me down here at Podfather Mags, where I am now officially a legal, legitimate lord. So refer to me as Sir when you come across me on your timeline. But yeah, just come and give me a follow. Come and join in with all the conversations I'm involved in, all the content I'm involved in as well, not just here on Radio Tekkers, but on Visionaries Global Media and on Chairshot. Yeah, it's always a good time, so come and check me out.
Indeed, the Lord has done his lording, as Graham would say. If you can find me at the Matt Attack UK, you can follow this show we're on now, the Volley, directly at the Volley Live, and obviously follow everything at Radio Tekkers. And we will be back with more football on Saturday for a Manchester derby, do please be here. Remember, it's going to be 12:30 kickoff in the UK, 7:30 Cowboy time, or 8:30 if you're on the East Coast. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to everybody for taking part. We love you all dearly. On behalf of myself and Mags, we are out of here.
Bye-bye.